She died screaming in their cold, sterile lab. 37 minutes later, the girl they dissected blinked open burning eyes and smiled. Keep reading to uncover the terrifying reason why death couldn't hold her, and why the aliens now fear what they've awakened. In the far reaches of the galaxy, alien species have abducted hundreds of humans for experimentation. But Subject 47, a seemingly ordinary teenage girl from Earth, turned out to be anything but ordinary. Tortured, dissected, and left for dead in a sterile containment chamber, her body lay still for 37 minutes. Then, something woke up. Not her mind, not her soul. Something older, something waiting, something human. They came in silence. One moment, Earth was as it always had been. Loud, messy, alive. The next, pieces of it began to vanish. Not cities, not monuments, but people. Quietly, without a trace. Across continents, individuals simply disappeared. No alarms, no flashes of light, just absence. Subject 47 was taken from a parking garage in suburban California. 1 second she was unlocking her car after night classes. The next she was blindfolded, weightless, and drowning in silence. Her name was Layla Pierce, 17 years old. A high school student, amateur coder, quiet, often overlooked. She wasn't a soldier, not a genius, no one special. And that's exactly why they chose her. The alien vessel was not a ship in the way humans understood ships. It was a biomechanical monstrosity, alive and indifferent. Cold metal pulsed like muscle. Fluids hissed through transparent veins along the walls. She awoke restrained on a slab, bathed in sterile blue light, surrounded by creatures whose forms her brain refused to fully process. Like their geometry had too many angles, too many limbs, and none of them stayed still. They didn't speak, didn't ask questions, they dissected. Her screams went unanswered in the hollow dark of that lab. 1,000 tiny instruments sliced, seared, and probed her. They opened her up like a puzzle to be solved. To them, she was data, tissue, a test case. They measured the elasticity of her pain, cataloged the resilience of her nerves, and watched how her brain sparked when she begged for her life. Layla fought, not with strength. There was no strength to give, but with a kind of stubborn defiance that refused to break. She locked eyes with them, even as blood filled her lungs, even as her heartbeat slowed. She whispered words in a language they didn't recognize. Her name, her mother's name, birth. And then, after 37 hours of experimentation, she finally died. The instruments beeped flat. The table went still. The observers recorded the moment. Time of death, 3:17 Galactic Core Standard. They marked her body for disposal. Just another failed sample. But they were wrong. She wasn't done, not yet. For 37 minutes, her body lay lifeless on the cold slab. The lab resumed its quiet rhythm. Automated arms retracting, scanners dimming, data streams concluding. The alien researchers floated away, more curious about the next specimen than the husk they'd left behind. Subject 47 had been logged, categorized, and discarded. Then the sensors began to blink. At first, it was subtle, an anomaly in the residual electromagnetic field surrounding the corpse. A flicker, a pulse. Instruments recalibrated automatically, assuming equipment error. But then came the heat spike. From 0 degrees Celsius to 37 degrees Celsius in under 2 seconds. No external source, no cause. Her cells were rehydrating. Neurons were firing. Heart activity restarting. A warning tone echoed across the chamber. Technicians returned, agitated, swarming the workstation. The screen displayed impossible vitals. Oxygen uptake through non-functional lungs. Synaptic activity in a brain that had been physically pierced. Tissue regrowth occurring in real time. Her body was rebuilding itself, as if some buried blueprint had overridden biological decay. At the 37th minute mark, she gasped. It wasn't a natural breath. It was more like a pull, deep and violent, dragging air into lungs that had not drawn breath in over half an hour. Her back arched, her fingers twitched, her eyes snapped open, blazing with an amber light not native to any human eye, not natural at all. One of the alien researchers attempted to restrain her. It never reached her. The instant it moved, the entity that had been Layla looked at it, and the creature, 3 times her size, armored, clawed, folded in on itself like paper. No touch, no motion, just will. Bones snapped inward. Fluids boiled inside their sacks. It died without a sound. Panic spread like fire. Emergency protocols activated. Containment fields were thrown up. But the systems glitched. Power surged. Lights dimmed. Code scrambled on their interfaces. It wasn't just her that had returned. It was something within her. Something using her body like a key. She sat up slowly, her skin flawless, glowing faintly. The incisions had vanished. The bruises, burns, holes, gone. She looked down at her hands as if seeing them for the first time. Then she looked at the scientists, those that hadn't fled. She smiled. Not a human smile. Not warm. A warning. She spoke only one word. And though the language was ancient and long forgotten, every being in the room understood it perfectly. Run, and they did. She did not chase them. She walked, bare feet silent against the alloy floor, the air around her humming with low-frequency tremors. Every step distorted reality just slightly. Walls bent a few degrees off true. Lights flickered in synchronized pulses with her heartbeat, and surveillance devices either melted or turned to dust in her presence. She wasn't just alive. She was radiating something. Something raw and ancient, like the gravity of a collapsing star made flesh. The aliens tried to isolate the anomaly. They theorized infection, then mutation, then external possession. But no pathogen moved like this. No virus rewrote matter. This wasn't possession. It wasn't evolution in the conventional sense either. What they had triggered was buried in the very architecture of her being, woven into the spirals of her DNA. Encrypted in silence since the dawn of mankind. It began with dreams, visions. She saw not her own memories, but those of lives that could not have been hers. A woman standing atop a mountain of fire in a skyless land. A child with eyes like galaxies who raised her hand and silenced an entire army. An old man who whispered to stars and made them dim. These were not fantasies. These were genetic echoes. The inheritance of a species crafted with a purpose no one remembered. For millennia, humanity had believed itself ordinary, evolving randomly, progressing slowly, but it had never been alone in its design. There had been an architect, long dead or long gone, who had left behind a final gift, a failsafe hidden in every human being, a code, a potential, one that could only activate under specific, catastrophic conditions. And now, because of the aliens' cruelty, because of the agony and death they forced upon her, that failsafe had awakened. It was not an infection. It was a reversion to something older than civilization, older than war, older than language. Something so powerful and primal it had to be buried under layers of biology and time. The aliens, in their arrogance, had peeled back those layers without knowing what they were touching. She no longer blinked. She didn't need to. Her eyes were conduits now, reflecting not light, but energy. She could bend gravity around her fingers like silk, rearrange molecules with thought, speak to machines in frequencies they didn't know they understood. And the most terrifying thing wasn't what she could do. It was how calm she was about it. As if she had always known, somewhere deep down, that this was inside her, inside all of them. She was no longer just Layla Pierce. She was what came after humanity died and something older took its place. The silence before the storm was absolute. Layla stood at the center of the alien vessel's research core, the heart of their operation, lined with thousands of capsules housing other abducted humans. Most were unconscious, some were broken beyond saving, but others, like her, had endured. For now, she raised her hands, not in violence, but in invocation. Her mouth opened, and what came out was not any known Earth language, not English, Urdu, Chinese, or Swahili, but something older, a tongue with rhythm like thunder and weight like stone, a language that hadn't been spoken in 100,000 years, not since Earth's first civilization vanished under unexplained stars. The sound of it cracked glass, systems sparked, alien airs bled. It wasn't just sound. It was command, a trigger embedded in the genetic code of every human body on board. A message meant only to be spoken in humanity's final hour. The lab began to fall apart, not through explosion, but disintegration. Metal rusted into ash, lights flickered and burst. Walls collapsed inward as if folded by unseen hands. None of it touched her. She didn't lift a finger. Reality simply bent around her desire. The ship had become a reflection of her mind, and she was no longer human in the way the universe understood. In nearby chambers, the changes began. Inside the stasis pods, other human captives stirred. One by one, they opened their eyes, some terrified, some calm, but all different. Veins glowed faint gold, pupils dilated in impossible shapes, skin shimmered under invisible frequencies. The failsafe had not only activated in Layla, her resurrection had been the signal. The awakening was spreading. The aliens, once cool and clinical, were now desperate and disoriented. They had spent centuries abducting, studying, dissecting humans, thinking they were weak, fragmented, emotional creatures. But in trying to understand humanity, they had peeled too deep, and touched something they were never meant to find. Now the humans weren't just subjects, they were awakening, each one a seed of whatever ancient force had built them, whatever designed them not just to survive, but to evolve when threatened. Layla turned her gaze toward the fleeing aliens, creatures that had once believed themselves gods, now reduced to prey. She whispered something under her breath. The walls of the ship rippled like water, matter unstitched, time buckled. Without touching a thing, she erased entire corridors, entire species, like smudging ink off a page. Retribution had begun, and she was only getting started. From the ruined remains of the alien vessel, something rose. Not a ship, not a beacon, something far older and more terrifying. An idea, wrapped in code, spoken in frequencies no language had ever used. It echoed across the quantum relay networks the aliens had built to control their empire. Faster than light, faster than thought. It threaded its way into every listening ear, every sensor, every starbound node. The message was simple, unmistakable, undeniable. We are humanity. You hurt one of us. Now all of you will burn. It wasn't sent from a command center. It didn't need to be translated. Every species, every system, every advanced intelligence in the known galaxy understood it instantly, because it wasn't just data. It was emotion, rage, loss, fury, and something colder beneath it. Certainty. The kind that came only when vengeance had already begun. The response was panic. Empires that had stood for thousands of years went silent overnight. Allied fleets scrambled, thinking it was a bluff, thinking it was just Earth, a primitive backwater planet barely worthy of charting. But those who had captured humans, those who had experimented, colonized, enslaved, began disappearing first. Entire moons blinked out of existence. Research colonies crumbled in reverse time. Ships found drifting in space were filled with crew whose minds had been rewritten, eyes wide open but seeing nothing. They had been shown something, a vision of what was coming, and none of them could bear it. Layla didn't need to leave the ship to wage war. She had become the storm, and she was no longer alone. All across the galaxy, other humans, scattered, hidden, forgotten, were changing, waking up. Not all at once, not yet, but enough. Enough to carry the signal forward. Enough to make sure the galaxy remembered. This was not the rise of an empire. This was not conquest. This was memory, returning, reclaiming. And the message was not just a warning. It was a promise. Humanity had been hurt, and the stars would now understand what that truly meant. And so it began. Not an invasion, not a war, but a reckoning. Layla stood at the edge of the broken vessel, watching space unfold around her. The stars looked different now, no longer distant points of light, but open doors. She could feel them, hear them, call to them. She wasn't alone anymore, and she wasn't afraid. Humanity had been scattered across the galaxy, dissected, enslaved, forgotten, but not broken, because in every human heart, beaten, buried, or burned, there lived a spark, one the universe had underestimated. They thought humanity was fragile. That emotion made them weak. That mortality made them irrelevant. They were wrong. Emotion made them dangerous. Mortality made them urgent. And pain had made them unstoppable. From this moment on, the stars would speak their name with caution, with reverence, with fear. Not because they sought domination, but because they would never be victims again. Layla turned her gaze to the cosmos. She wasn't coming to beg. She was coming to remind them. Humanity remembers. And now, so will you. If this story awakens something inside you, a sense of power, of justice, of untapped potential, then you're already part of what's coming. This wasn't just a tale of science fiction. It was a reminder. Humanity is never as weak as it appears. We are emotion wrapped in flesh, memory forged in fire, and when pushed too far, we don't fall, we evolve. If that idea speaks to you, if it resonates somewhere deep, then you're not alone. There are more stories like this, more echoes of humanity's hidden strength, rage, and beauty waiting to be told. Stories where we don't just survive the universe, we change it. So don't miss what comes next. Tap, subscribe, now to be part of this unfolding legend, because they should have never hurt one of us, and now they'll never forget us.